Welcome to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting. Welcome our guests. And at this point, we'll start out with public announcements, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you. I'm Bob Duell, sitting in for Ann Fox, who is at a meeting in Australia, and she didn't invite any of the rest of us. But I'm sure she's having a great time. At this time, I'd like to do a roll call. Ann Fox is absent. Cindy Miles.
Present.
Rob Hartman. Mike Green. Here. Deborah Foster is absent. John Williams Bay. Here. John McKay. Joe Johnson. Don't think Joe's joined us yet. Okay. Josh Blick. Mr. Blick's not here. Bill Johnson. Here. Bob Aldridge.
Present.
Hugh Nix. Not with us today. Chuck Warren.
Here.
Bob Duell here. Okay. We have no minutes to approve from the previous meeting. Staff is still working on that, so we will be approving those at our next meeting. So at this time, we will move into subdivision cases. The first case up is sub 00019, one step final plant, Cantrell Farms Edition, located on the south side of West 15th Street South, 1/2 mile west of South 391st Street West. It's in the county. Does anyone present want to hear this case? Don't think we have anybody remote at this time. If not, we'll take that on consent.
Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. Could you go first as just as a formality?
go and ask if any of the board want to hear it, and then any members of the public, and then any of those virtually attending. Thank you.
So no one on the board, does anyone on the board want to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present who wants to hear this case? Okay, is there anyone remotely that wants to hear this case? If not, we'll take it on consent. The next one is sub 00020, one step final plat, all metal recycling, second edition, located on the south side of East 29th Street North, 600 feet east of North Broadway Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear this case? We don't have anybody remotely. Is there anyone from the public present that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone remotely that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve items 2.1, 2.2. Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. And now we have public hearing vacation items. The first one is case number 00011. It's a request in the city to vacate drainage and utility easement, reprocess of previous case 00033, generally located on the south side of West Ponderosa Street and east of 3535 West Ponderosa Street. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Second case is 00012. Request in the city to vacate a taxiway easement on property zoned LI Limited Industrial District, generally located on the west side of South Eisenhower Avenue on Eisenhower Court, approximately 750 feet south of West Harry Street, 1635 South Eisenhower Court. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present that wants to hear this case? Is there anybody remote that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take it on consent. The next vacation case 3.3 is 00013. It's a request in the city to vacate a joint access easement dedicated by separate instrument, generally located on the south side of West 53rd Street North and 1/4 mile west of North Meridian Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this case? Still don't have any remote commissioners. Is there anyone from the public present that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone remote that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take 3.3 on consent. 3.4 is 00014. Request in the city to vacate platted access controls to permit 50-foot drive onto West 53rd Street North. Together with a vacation case 00015, generally located on the south side of West 53rd Street North, 1/4 mile west of North Meridian Avenue. Is there anyone present that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Anyone from the public? Is there anyone remote that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take this on consent. The next vacation is 00015. request in the city to vacate platted access controls to permit a 50-foot drive onto West 53rd Street North, together with vacation case 00014, generally located on the south side of West 53rd Street North and 1/4 mile west of North Meridian. Basically the same address as the previous case. Is there anyone from the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone remote that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take it on consent.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve vacation 202312, 13, 14, and 15.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now we will go through the public hearings. Or should we take the BZA cases next?
No, we typically, in the past, have gone through the public hearings just to find out which ones will
Sure.
go consent and which ones won't, and then recess into the BCA.
Good. Okay, the first public hearing case is on 2023-00014, conditional use in the city to allow vehicle and equipment sales outdoor for trailer rentals generally located on the southwest corner of West 37th Street North and North Arkansas Avenue. Is there anyone present that would like to hear that case? Anyone on the commission? Yes.
There, on the conditions, number 2.
Yes,
Says the conditions shall be limited to the rental of trucks and trailers. No sale of vehicles or rental of boats, motorcycles, scooters, recreational vehicles are permitted. Can they rent cars?
yes,
I guess we ought to,
The condition says that it's limited to the rental of trucks and trailers, so not cars.
so I guess for me, it wasn't clear whether the cars were included with the trucks or they're not. So we could clear up the wording on that as to what exactly is allowed, not on that item.
It could be part of it. We could take it as a separate motion for consent with an understanding to update that to clarify that cars are also not allowed.
Okay,
Well, I'll make a motion when we do that. We'll do that motion separate then. When it comes
Okay.
around.
want to go ahead and take that motion right now? Okay,
We need to find out if there's public comment.
does anybody from the public want to hear this case that's present? Is there anybody remotely that would like to hear this case? If not, how about we just say we'll take this on consent with the inclusion that you indicated for cars and trucks, right?
So moved. No.
Just a quick staff question. So I think the discussion was, and I want to make sure I understand it correctly, the motion is to approve, but that we would clarify on condition number 2 that there would be no rental of cars.
Okay. Okay. Well, if no one wants to hear that, we'll take it on consent. Clarification, or should we vote on it? Okay. We'll take a separate vote on this case then. No one from the public wants to hear this or speak on this case. Anybody remotely want to hear this case? If not, we'll bring it back, and all those in favor with the amendment indicate by saying aye.
We have to
We
make
have to
a
have a
motion.
motion. I'll remake the motion that we approve with all the conditions with a change clarifying the status on cars not being able to be sold or rented.
Right.
Second.
We need a second, excuse me. We get a second?
Second, Joe.
Okay. Joe Johnson's with us. Okay. Got a motion and a second. Now, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, the same sign. Motion approved. Now, we have 4.2, con 2023-00015. Conditional use request in the city to allow a neighborhood swimming pool on property zoned TF3, two-family residential district, generally located 1/2 mile west of North 127th Street and 1/4 mile south of Central Avenue. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Joe, do you want to hear this case?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to hear this case that's present? Okay. Is there anybody else from the public remote that would like to hear this case? We will take this case on consent. Next case is on 2023-00016. Conditional use request to permit a nightclub in the city association with a event center on the property zoned general commercial within 300 feet of residential zoning located on the east side of South Washington Avenue and approximately 140 feet from East Lincoln Street. The address is 1208 South Washington. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Okay, we'll hear this case. Next case is Community Unit Plan 2023-00014. It's an amendment in the city to allow taverns and drinking establishments, nightclubs in the city as an accessory use and restaurant drive-throughs generally located on the west side of North Greenwich Road within 1/2 mile south of East 13th Street North. Anyone on the planning commission want to hear this case? Okay, you want to ask it now?
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So the other parcels allow drive-in, drive-through facilities, including restaurants, taverns, and drinking establishments, and a nightclub in the city permitted as an accessory use to other allowed uses. We're just adding that on parcels 8.1 and 9.1. Is that correct?
I believe only, let me look through the CE here. I believe that the other parcels don't have that permission. It would only be parcels 8.1 and 9.1.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, well, here's this case. Next case is CUP 2023-00015. It is a request in the city to amend the Mays and 29th Street Community Unit Plan, which is CUP DP 327, to modify the architectural controls and landscaping requirements generally located approximately 400 feet north of the West 29th Street North and east of North Mays Road. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Does anyone from the public want to hear this case? Does anyone remotely want to hear this case?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we'll hear this case. Next is 4.6 is zoning 2023-00020. It's a zone change in the county from SF 20 single family residential district to GC general commercial district for vehicle storage yard, generally located west of North Ridge Road and approximately 650 feet south of West 45th Street North. Address is 4435 North Ridge Road. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case?
Yes.
Okay, we'll hear this case. Next case is zoning case 00022. Zone change request in the county from SF 20 single family residential district to LC limited commercial district, generally located on the southeast corner of West 45th Street North and North Ridge Road. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you use your microphone, please, Mr. Freed?
I knew better. On the protective overlay, item number 4 says that they should build a 6-foot wooden fence on the east and south sides. The property abuts LC zoning. So is that going to be a requirement or is that just a recommendation? I would have thought that whoever had the property that was zoned LC before this property would have been responsible for putting up that fence.
And that is the intention. The CUP, which has there's two little strips of land that are LC that are part of the CUP, should be providing screening. They probably won't provide that screening until that CUP is developed. And so the intention of that provision of the PO is to make sure that screening is supplied at the point of commercial activity, whether it's the CUP. The CUP isn't providing the screening. If this property is used commercially, then they would need to provide the screening.
So it's my understanding that the approval of this case would specifically require approval of the overlay to provide that screening, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does anyone want to hear this case on the planning commission?
I think we might want to hear it because I'm not a fan of requiring this applicant to be responsible for putting up that screening when the property adjacent to it is LC.
Okay, we'll hear this case. Next case, zoning case 00023. Zone change request in the city from SF5 to TF3 for duplex development, generally located east of North Jackson Heights Street and approximately 670 feet north of East Douglas Avenue. The address is 200 North Jackson Heights Street. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Does anyone present from the public want to hear this case? Is there anyone remote that would like to hear this case?
Yeah, I'd like to hear it. This is Joe.
We'll hear that case. Next case is zoning 00024 with CON 2023-00018. It's a request in the city to amend protective overlay PO 170 to permit personal care service on property zoned GO general office in connection with the CON 2023-00018, generally located on the south side of East 21st Street North and west of North Cranbrook Street. And the address is 10111 East 21st Street North. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone remote that would like to hear this case? Not, we'll take that on consent. And then we have zoning case 00025. It's a zone change request in the city from SF5 single family residential district to MF18 multifamily residential district for a fourplex development generally located south of North Hoover Road and west of North Curtis Street. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Does anyone present from the public want to hear this case? Is there anyone on remotely that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that case by consent. Okay, we're going to
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve items 4.9 and 4.10.
How about 4.2?
4.2 as well. 2, 9, and 10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We will now recess the planning commission meeting and open the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. We have 2 items on there to consider. We have minutes of the previous BZA meeting.
Move that we approve the minutes of the BZA meeting for April 13th. Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion carries. Okay, we have BZA 2023-00023. A variance request in the county to increase the height of an existing billboard generally located on the north side of US 54 and within 1/2 mile west of South 127th Street East. I have a note on here that we want to hear both of these cases. Is that correct? Okay, so we'll just move on from that and we will hear those cases. So shall we go ahead and hear the BZA cases at this point?
Yes, sir. I do have one quick request. I just want to check and applicant or agent is here.
Yep, he's here. Okay, good afternoon. Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff. BZA 2023-23 is a variance request to increase the height of an existing billboard from 35 feet to 40 feet, located on the north side of East Kellogg, about 1/2 mile west of 127th Street West, or 127th Street East, excuse me. The property is in the county. The property is zoned single-family residential. In 2015, a variance was approved to permit the construction of a billboard in single-family zoning. This is under the governance of the Sedgwick County Sign Code, which does have differences than the City of Wichita Sign Code. Those codes are not unified like our zoning code. In the Sedgwick County Sign Code, they do not have any opportunity to do administrative adjustments regarding the height of signs related to elevated highways. So any increase over the maximum height of 35 feet requires a variance. The applicant indicates that the sign will have a static face for eastbound traffic and a digital face for westbound traffic, which I believe is what it has now. The Sedgwick County Sign Code allows digital displays to be 500 feet apart. KDOT has a rule that digital displays have to be 1,000 feet apart. With this case, in conjunction with the next one, which is the property to the east, the rhythm at which the applicant intends to have digital displays meets both of those requirements. The property to the north is zone single family 20, is in Sedgwick County and is used for agricultural uses. It's under the same ownership. Property to the south is the Kellogg Freeway, and farther south than that is general commercial zoning. Property to the east is limited commercial and single family SF20, which is under common ownership, and we'll be speaking more of that property on the next application. Property to the west is zone OW. It's in the city of Wichita. In 2020, administrative adjustment was approved to increase the height of their on-site sign, which advertises for things on the property, not a billboard, from 35 feet to 50 feet. This increase was permitted because the sign code in the city of Wichita allows signs to be up to 20 feet high or higher than the elevated highway that it is next to. When discussing variances, we go over the 5 criteria, which if the Board of Zoning Appeals would like to grant this variance, they must find that all 5 of these criteria exist. The first criteria is the request is unique to the property and was not created by the applicant. The applicant states that the variance is necessary due to the elevation of East Kellogg, including the dividing barrier between the directional lanes. The elevating of the highway at this location was not created as by an action of the property owner. Staff concurs that the increase in the height of the highway was not the applicant's fault. It is a unique circumstance in this situation. Criteria number 2, granting of the variance will not adversely affect the rights of the adjacent property owners. Both staff and our staff is agreeing with the applicant's statement that most of the properties are along this area are commercial with signs. The only non-commercial property nearby is the applicant's, and it does not have residential uses. So we don't feel that it will have a detrimental impact on surrounding properties. Third criteria states that the strict application of the provisions of the sign code would constitute an unnecessary hardship on the applicant. The applicant states that the strict application of the code, which requires a maximum height of 35 feet, will constitute an unnecessary hardship to the property owner by making the past and existing billboards not reasonably viewable by motorists and therefore is not economically viable. Staff actually disagrees with this. Paul, can you go to the site photos, please? Skip ahead a little bit. Upon a site visit, when you're going on eastbound Kellogg, here's the dividing barrier. Going eastbound, westbound traffic's on the other side. And this picture indicates that the billboard is viewable even from eastbound Kellogg over top of the dividing barrier. So when it comes to the hardship of not getting an additional 5 feet, staff disagrees with this. There was no evidence provided by the applicant in terms of kind of a study based on the visibility of where the elevation of the highway is versus the height of the sign. There was no type of study. There was no survey data to show where the height of the elevated highway is versus the sign and where the points of visibility or non-visibility are located. So staff does not agree that this would provide an unnecessary hardship on the applicant. Criteria number 4 is the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, welfare, convenience, and harmonious development of the community. The applicant states that the billboards inform the motoring public and afford local, regional, and national businesses to provide information. Marketing and advertising will not adversely affect the public in this manner, and staff agrees with that. The applicant states that the general spirit and intent of the applicable code is to balance the effect of the sign and the surrounding property and the residents with the existing plan development in the area. Increasing the height by 5 feet is not opposed in the spirit and intent of the code. Generally, staff concurs that a 5 foot increase would not be against the spirit and intent of the code. As the Sedgwick County sign code does not provide an opportunity for administrative adjustments like the sign code in the city of Wichita. So overall, staff generally feels that 4 out of the 5, in our opinion, it is based on the opinion of the Board of Zoning Appeals on whether or not all 5 criteria are met. If they do find that all 5 criteria are met, the staff recommends the following conditions: that the sign would not exceed 40 feet in height, as shown on the site drawing submitted. It would have an approved site plan. It would have to adhere to all applicable setbacks, and that all necessary permits would be pulled and the sign would be erected or changed within 1 year. And the sign would conform to all other requirements in the sign code. I think we'll just, for the sake of time, we'll just stick with this site here. The applicant submitted 1 site plan for both of these cases. So this one over here with this line here, that's actually on the adjacent property to the east. This is the sign in question here where the existing billboard is at. We'll talk about this sign and the other 2 in the other case, and I can stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Actually, if I could, let's just go through the rest of the site picture so we get a general feel for the rest of it, not just the one that shows the sign over top of the highway divider. So this is on the north side of the highway. This is facing west. This is westbound traffic coming from the turnpike onto Kellogg. This is the existing sign at 35 feet. Next picture. This is looking north. Next picture. This is looking to the east. Again, this is the ramp from the turnpike onto Kellogg. Next picture. And I can stand for questions.
Any questions for staff? Yes.
Are there any signs in that general location that are already at 40 foot?
The property to the west, this property right here, that's zone OW, they have an on-site sign advertising their business that was administratively approved to 50 feet back in 2020. It's in the city of Wichita. This city limit boundary is the property line between the 2.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff on this? If not, we'll call on the agent or applicant to speak. You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address.
My name is James McMaster. I live at 201 South St. Francis, Wichita, Kansas. I guess I'd like to start out is that picture you had of the vehicle and the sign that you took. One of the things that I want to state is if that's a high profile vehicle, you can see it. If you're in a low profile vehicle, you cannot. It breaks up part of the board on the bottom. Could you bring that picture back? What I'm trying to say is if you're in a low profile vehicle going on that overpass, you only see the top portion. If that is like an SUV or whatever, you can see it that way. That's why we wanted to put it at 40 feet. The second thing is I think there's a mistake. Because when we submitted this, we had to redo it real quickly, and I don't know who we submitted it to. My brother did this, he's an attorney. We plan on putting a digital on that static side, raising it 40 feet. And within the codes being 1,000 foot apart, that's what we're proposing. So we were going to raise it 5 feet and put a digital on that side.
Do you have any other comments at this time? Are there any questions or comments from the commission for the speaker at this point?
Sir, would you do the digital on both sides?
Excuse me?
Would your digital be on both sides of the?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, thank
One
you.
westbound and one eastbound face. We already have the westbound face. That's a digital.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I want to explain why we're asking for these variances. You may know that I had 3 billboards prior to this, and they got torn down for the highway expansion. So now we're in the process, the highway's done, and this is what we're wanting to do to make them kind of bring them back to where, to where they were.
Okay, well, thank you for your
I
comments.
got one question.
No, excuse me, go
Do
ahead.
you agree with
Mr. Green.
do you agree with the conditions under the recommendation on the staff report?
Meaning,
There are 4 conditions that are on the staff report. Just wanted to make sure.
yes, I agree.
Okay.
Hey, if there's no other questions, is there any members of the public present that would like to speak on this case? If so, you have 3 minutes. Anybody present want to speak on this? Is there anyone remotely that would like to speak on this case? Anyone remotely? Okay, then we will bring it back to, I guess we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion at this point.
I move to approve.
Second,
Okay. There's been a motion and a second.
Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. As part of the motion to approve, I would also recommend that you make a finding that all 5 elements for the variance have been met.
And that includes that I feel like all 5 conditions of the variance have been met.
and second agrees.
Yeah, the 5 conditions, I believe, are stated in the application there. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Okay, that takes care of the 2 BZA cases that we had.
We still have
Oh, we're gonna take. them
24.
now. Excuse me, that's right.
So the second one today is 2324. As we discussed before, it's the property to the east of the previous one. Currently, there are 3 offsite signs, which are a different type of sign than a billboard. If we go to the site plan, one's more on the off ramp between the Turnpike and Kellogg, and they're kind of dotted, almost evenly spaced, and they plan on replacing those offsite signs with billboards, as the applicants stated in the previous one. They previously had billboards there and then had to remove them for the highway expansion. The west sign, they propose to be 50 feet. The middle sign, they propose to be 45 feet. And the east sign proposes to be 50 feet as well. Again, the purpose of this is to advertise goods, services, and information to I-35, as well as the Kellogg Freeway, which is to the south and to the east of the property. Same things apply, where they will space them appropriately with, I believe the middle sign will have digital faces, which would be 1,000 feet from the sign on the previous application. And then the west and the east signs will have static faces in order to meet that 1,000-foot distance that KDOT requires. For sake of time, I'm not going to go through each criteria the same, just staff's opinion was the same, not all of them, but the hardship one, from our opinion, were met. Regarding the hardship, there are currently no billboards on there now, so it's unknown whether or not 35 feet would be visible. There were no exhibits provided to show that 45 and 50 feet are needed in order to provide the visibility. So there was really not a lot of evidence to show that the visibility would be compromised only at 35 feet. And with that, I will go through the site pictures just for contextual view of the site. Again, this is looking north on the property. This is one of the offsite signs here. Next picture, please. This is the middle sign. Again, this is the ramp from the Turnpike to westbound Kellogg. Next picture. This is looking straight to the east. Next picture. This is the Turnpike. This is the ramp going. See, so this is east of the property. The property is over here to the right. Next picture. This is the farthest east one. One thing that staff noted with this is, in terms of visibility, unlike the other property where it seems to be in a little bit of a depression, this property actually has a little bit of an elevation gain to it. Again, we're unsure if 35 feet would actually be visible or not, was never proven. Next picture. This is looking west. Again, there's the offset sign. This is the billboard from the previous one. Next picture. And again, this is looking to the southwest at the elevation of the highway as it goes to the east. I can stand for questions.
Anyone have questions for the staff?
I have one question. I got cut off a little while ago. Have you done 2023?
Sir, at this point, it is the discussion of the Board of Zoning Appeals. There will be a time for public comment with this case as well.
Okay, sorry about that.
Get to that in just a minute. So at this point, the applicant has 10 minutes to speak on this. Would you like to make any comments?
Do I need to state my name and address again?
Sure.
James McMaster, 201 South St. Francis, Wichita, Kansas. Like the first sign, just to give some more clarity, and again, I'm new at this by all means. If we're talking about these three signs from the digital that we just talked about, the land actually, the elevation goes down 10 feet. That's why we're asking for 50 feet. As it goes back up to the next sign, if you want me to go through this, it elevates up between 5 and 10 feet. That's why we're going at 45. And it actually, what he's showing on the turnpike, it goes back down 10 feet. You also have the K96 interchange there, and there's a bridge. If it's down that low, you can't be spotted. That bridge will block it going west. So that's why we're asking for those variances on the heights of the signs.
Does anyone on the commission have questions of the applicant at this point?
Yeah, if we are to approve this, do you agree with the 4 conditions under the recommendation on the?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we will call on anybody from the public present that would like to ask a question or make comment on this. Anyone present? Okay, sir, remotely, you can ask a question of the applicant at this point.
I was asking about another one, so I think I'll wait on that one. I was asking about 2023-0020. Have you done
Sir,
that?
can you state your name and address, please?
Michael Imbert. I'm 4430 North Ridge Road, Wichita, Kansas 67205.
Sir, we'll be hearing that zoning case in just a few minutes. We'll call that one specifically, so stay tuned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, there's really no rebuttal at this point. We'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Move for approval. Finding the 5 criteria having been met.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those the same sign, motion carries. Now I think we're through the BZA cases. Pardon me for not handling those two separately. So we will now go back to the agenda for public hearings. And I believe the first one we have up is
Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. I apologize. Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. Could you formally adjourn the meeting
Oh,
of the
yeah.
BZA? Thank you.
Sorry. I'm new at this. Yes. So I have a motion to adjourn the BZA meeting and reconvene the planning commission.
You can just do it unilaterally through your own
Okay.
position.
Well, then I adjourn the meeting and we will reconvene the planning commission meeting. And we're now considering case 4.3, right?
Good afternoon again, Philip Zevenbergen for the record. Item 4.3 is Con 2023-16. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to permit an event center, which may provide entertainment and alcohol for patrons, which is defined as a nightclub in the city per the zoning code on a property zone general commercial located on the east side of South Washington, just a couple 100 feet south of East Lincoln, as you can see on the screen. The property is addressed 1208 South Washington. Go to the aerial image, Paul. You're going to see three structures on the property. The northernmost two that are kind of connected to each other. I'm assuming they've got the ability to be open to each other. Those where the proposed event center is going to be located. There's a third structure on the property on the southeastern side of it that is an office for an existing roofing company. And that will remain. Paul, if you want to go to the site plan, please. The space between the buildings, so this is where the event center will be located. This is the office for the roofing company. According to the site plan, they plan to pave and stripe the spaces in between the buildings, providing the parking, which would have to be applicable to all uses on the site, both the event center when it's in use, as well as the office space for the nightclub, or I'm seeing office space for the roofing company when it's in use. This requires a conditional use for a couple of reasons. There's MF 29 zoning on this lot right here, as well as on the east side of the platted alley to the east, there's residential zoning as well, all of which is within 300 feet, which requires the conditional use to be reviewed. Property to the north is zoned general commercial, is developed with an office and storage for a roofing company that is separate, I believe, from theirs. Property to the east, as I mentioned before, across the platted alley along Lincoln, you have a limited commercial zone property, which is a pawn shop, and then you have MF 29 zone properties that are single family dwellings. To the west, across South Washington, our property zone general commercial and are developed with office and warehouse uses. And as I mentioned before, the property directly to the south is MF 29. It's undeveloped. Properties farther south of that are general commercial zoning. The site plan does not necessarily indicate any proposed outdoor spaces like a patio. The distance from the buildings for the event center and the nearest residential buildings is approximately 160 feet, and that's to the east. With this, staff is recommending that there be no outdoor speakers or outdoor entertainment of any kind. And staff is also recommending hours of operation for the entertainment if it is provided. So the hours of operation we're recommending don't necessarily apply to the event center. They can have events there as long as they don't have entertainment, which is used in the form of DJs, live music, things like that. Screening and landscaping. The property on the east side of it already has a screening fence along the platted alley, so that's in conformance. This was established as a commercial zone prior to the landscaping ordinance, and so there wouldn't necessarily need to be any landscaping along South Washington. One thing that's very unique here, this property to the south, this lot here that's MF 29 is under the common ownership as the applicant. It is MF 29. Our zoning code technically requires screening along this property line here between what is GC and what is MF 29. And so there's a few ways that can be handled with this. One, they could put the fence up, but obviously that plans to cut through a parking space that they want to use. They could rezone the property to the south to something as high as, GO or potentially commercial if they wanted to, in order to not have to screen the property. Or they would need to apply for a conditional use for ancillary parking. One, so they can actually use this parking space that straddles the line. And two, then it's a connected lot regarding the screening. So it's just kind of a little outlier thing that's not necessarily buttoned up, but maybe the applicant can address how they want to do that. The attached site plan, as you see on the screen, indicates 20 spaces with 2 accessible spaces. As I mentioned before, this one that straddles the line technically can't be used because it's in a residential zoning, and that doesn't allow for parking as ancillary for a use not on the property. So technically there's only 19 that can be used towards the event center and the office space combined. So they could run into issues of if they're both operating at the same time, technically 3 of those parking spaces have to be used for the office space. And then the remainder can be used for the event center. The parking requirement is 1 per 2 occupants. So if there are only 19 spaces available at the maximum, the occupancy can potentially only be 38 unless they have agreements offsite somewhere for additional parking. Regarding the community investments plan, if you want to go to the land use plan, the property is identified by the future land use map for industrial uses. So this is in conformance with that. Regarding locational guidelines, they state that to generally mitigate between possible negative impacts such as traffic light noise, regarding screening and buffering and site design features that would help mitigate those adverse impacts. Again, we talked about the screening fence. Between the screening fence of this property, the other screening fence on the east side of the alley, and the existing trees that buffer between the commercial uses on Washington and the residential uses on the block to the east. Staff feel that those do a decent job of mitigating possible negative impacts, in addition to the conditions of approval, which would prohibit outdoor entertainment or loudspeakers, as well as the hours of operation for the entertainment. Places for people plan, it's in conformance with strategy number 6, which encourages infill development that is contextual to its environment. The property is already zoned general commercial and by right can have a number of very intensive commercial uses developed on the site, which have been working in concert with the residential uses to the east for some time. South Washington has historically been a very intensive commercial corridor, and those houses have been there for a number of years, number of decades, coexisting with these commercial uses on Washington for some time. Staff is recommending approval subject to the following conditions: that the use of nightclub in the city be accessory to an event center. That means there has to be an event going on, and that the provision of entertainment and alcohol are accessory to that type of an event. So it doesn't necessarily turn into a traditional nightclub, so to speak. So the nightclub adhere to the supplementary use regulations. Hours of operations be restricted to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then ending at midnight on Friday and Saturday. Again, that's in relation to the residential properties to the east. No amplified music outdoors, including loudspeakers on a patio, whether enclosed or not. The site plan will have, the site will have to be developed in conformance with the site plan, and whatever improvements are shown on there. Improvements that would be needed are, the parking lot, the paving, the striping of the parking, the screening fence along the south property line, or in lieu of the screening fence, the property to the south needs to be rezoned to something commercial, so that the screening is not required. And so the applicant really has the choice of potentially not looking to begin or operating the event center until he handles the property to the south, as opposed to having to put a screening fence along that to screen a random lot that's zoned MF29 that he owns that could potentially be used in this situation. The parking lot should be kept free of trash and debris, and no loitering or congregation or excessive noise in the parking lot. I've only received one comment on this one. If you go back to the aerial image, Paul, across the street on the southwest corner of Washington and Lincoln, this business owner has had issues with this property having excessive parking spillover into their parking lot. We understand that's more of a private matter. He was just concerned of another business that might have a large draw of people potentially having parking, using other businesses' parkings and things like that. That's a civil matter that has to be dealt with between property owners. So that's not something that's necessarily contingent on the conditional use application. Other than that, I have not heard any public comments regarding this one. It goes to DAB the beginning of June. So we don't have any information from DAB. And with that, I can go through the site pictures. This is looking east at the site. This is the building that the events center is proposed to be in. This is the office building for the roofing. Next picture. This is that MF29 zoned lot. It technically would be here. I guess I misspoke. The property is already paved with the parking, but this is the MF29 zone lot. You can see the screening fence that goes behind the subject property. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. This house is on property that's zoned general commercial. It's unknown whether it's actually occupied or not. Next picture. This is looking to the west. These are the office warehouse uses on the west side of Washington. Next picture. This is on the alley looking kind of south and to the west. This is the back of their building. You can see their screening fence along. You can even see the screening fence on the other side. Next picture. And again, this is the screening fence. You can see some existing trees in the area and the backs of the houses that are on the next block over. And I can stand for any questions.
Does anyone on the commission have questions of staff? Bob, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wouldn't it be better to clean up the property on the south? That's MF 29 right now. Before this gets approved on that, because it seems to me that, you know, there's a bit of an encroachment from, even though he owns the property, I get that. But in the event that that was ever to be sold or something like that, if that's not cleaned up now, wouldn't that propose a problem in the future?
Possibly. It could be, if it is the will of the board, you could potentially recommend deferral until a zone change for the property at the south is handled.
Thank you.
Mr. Green.
When determining the capacity for events in a building, does the fire department factor in the number of parking spaces when determining that capacity?
So we basically did it on the reverse side to say they only have 19 parking spaces or 20 parking spaces. And so if you have one parking space per 2 occupants, then based on the number of cars that could park there, with the understanding that, you know, 3 or 4 people could be in one car, and ultimately the capacity of the building set by the fire department would be the rule. There's nothing in here to say they can't have more than 38 people. But if only 2 people per car came, then you're only looking at 38 to 40 people based on the number of parking spaces they have.
So if I may, I
How
believe.
is that enforceable?
So they'll have an occupancy card posted in the facility, but capacity is based on the facility and how the facility is designed. Having said that, in cases where there's limited parking, MAPC usually will work with the folks and with the fire department, and they'll essentially down post that building. So for instance, let's say this building could hold 200 people and they have 5 parking spaces, they're only going to get 10. And then it is posted, and should there be an issue and PD or if FD goes out, they can be cited, and they can also be closed down immediately for violation.
Okay, so there is coordination between planning and fire.
MAPC will be the ones reviewing the plans, and you know they're going to set that occupancy, and they're going to look at it and go, oh well, it holds 150 and they have parking for 20, so there's an issue. And that's assuming MAPC and fire department do agree to the down posting. There have been times when they have not, but as a rule, they will.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
So what's the farthest distance from the closest residence to the edge of this building?
160 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is the agent or applicant present? I should have asked that to begin with. Please go to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Hello, my name is Miguel Garcia. My address is 2225 South Millstead Court, Wichita, Kansas 67209. As far as the venue goes, well, as far as the event center, what I'm proposing is a wedding venue type of I guess business. I do own, as far as parking goes, I do own past the residential, the little slot right there. And I don't know how it came about, but I believe back in 2018, 2019, I actually changed everything over into general commercial. That's the only area that hasn't been done. But our plans are to go ahead and change that area to general commercial. And our, I guess our parking lot would go from the edge of the building all the way to the edge of the house. And that's what we're expecting to do. As far as the permit with MABCD, we've pulled the permit. We are on the final stages of finishing the I guess the building, all the renovations, and everything has been, I guess it'd be 80% completed. As far as working in the quality roofing building, that's my office. I also have another building out in Valley Center where I am going to move my office to. So there won't be any, I guess, any interference with the building of the venue and the roofing business.
Is there any questions from the commission at this point, or the applicant? Yes, Bob.
Yes, sir. I do have a question. You just stated that you're looking at doing your overflow parking on right up to the house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you looking at paving that, or?
That's the plan. We want to pave it all the way up to the house.
Okay. Do you think that you probably ought to get that zone change from the zoning to the GO zoning prior to doing this?
Yes, I have the application for that section, but that would be something that I would need to do.
Okay, thank you.
How many people do you perceive being in the building?
In the building, the way that the architects drew it up, and back in 2019, when I initially pulled the permit with Paul Hayes, he had given me an estimated number of 299 people.
Any other questions from the commission or the applicant at this point? Yes, Mr. Warren.
So where do you propose to find parking for 250 plus people?
Well, that I'm going, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and expand the parking lot, taking my business away from there. I'm going to have to speak to the architect and see how we can fit the parking spots there. I know that there is 3 ways of entry there, depending on how we set it up in the entrances and exits.
If your architect came up with a plan, let's say added 10 spots, would you be willing to reduce the occupancy of the building?
Yes, I would be willing to do that.
Any other questions of the applicant from staff? Mr. McKay.
I think that probably under the circumstances of your lack of parking, you probably ought to defer this and do whatever you're going to do, bring it back. What process, because he's got 2/3 of it or 99% of it already done, process he'd have to go through.
I think what Mr. McKay is suggesting is the rezoning process for the MF29 property, that if that application is submitted, then that's something that could probably be considered at the same time as this entire case, if you choose to defer this item to that point.
I think you're going to hit a stone wall when it comes to the parking requirement. If you're talking about 299 people, you need to get your architect back out, and if you have to tear out buildings or whatever it might do to get the parking closer to where you need to be. Because you're talking about reducing from, what was it, 19 parking spaces based to 299 people?
299
Yeah.
people, and looks like it's only approved for possibly 38.
Well, when I had spoke to Richard Chamberlain, when it was about halfway through the permit, through the application, well, through us building and getting our inspections, that's when I had asked him about how many people could we fit in this building. He calculated, according to the code of the amount of exits, how far each corner is from the exits, and he's the one that gave me the number. Like I said, I'd be willing to go down on how many people, how many occupants I could have in it. I do own the areas to the south that are general commercial right now. I would be able to pay that. I would really like to have the consent to go forward, but even if I have to lower the amount of occupants.
You want us to approve that the maximum occupancy you can have in there is 40 people?
What I would like to do is, would there be a way where we can meet with with the MABCD downstairs and see how many people I would be allowed according to the way the building's set up?
Staff, do you, or Scott, do you have any comments on the direction of this?
Yes, I think I do.
Okay.
The building has its own requirements for calculating occupancy. Those apparently are 299. The use will be limited by the parking available, which if it truly is 19, we're talking 38 people. There won't be any negotiation to be had because the building is the building. It has its requirements, but in this case, you're limited by the amount of available parking.
I'd like to add, I see a couple of options here. One, sir, is that you could proceed with the case and see if it gets approved today as currently proposed and presented. And that would allow you to perhaps open the facility, but your capacity would be limited by your parking. So it would be substantially less than the 299 that you've mentioned. It would limit it to 38, get just the way that things are set up right now. Then in the future, if you proceed with that option and it does get approved, you could always come in with a future application to either rezone the residential property to the south or pave the property, the GC property to the south. You could always apply to have things updated to reflect your new parking capacity. Your other option, option number 2, is to defer the item, work on the application, rezone the residential property to the south and kind of fold that in as part of your entire application and then bring it forward as a complete package.
I agree. And also based on the parking standard, the capacity of virtually 300, the amount of spaces needed to be 150 parking spaces.
Which I would comment that you don't necessarily have to provide all of those on properties that you own. You can get parking agreements with other area businesses to see if that would satisfy your parking requirement.
Mr. Jimenez, what are your thoughts on these options?
I would, could we go ahead and do the proposed 38? I'm going to go ahead and turn in the application for the multifamily parcel that is in between my lots that are general commercial. And then I am going to go ahead and pave the rest of that and see how many parking spots I can put out there.
So we would be proposing to amend this application to 38 parking stalls, right? Right. 19 stalls, excuse me, 38 occupants.
So I have a question. If we were to approve this today for 38, because the noise for an event center that hosts 38 people is a lot different than the noise from an event center that hosts 299 people. That's a lot of difference. And I know, again, from being just down, a block down, I've got a neighbor that plays his music really loud and my kids can't sleep at night because he's playing it till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's going to produce a lot more noise for 299 compared to 38. So if we prove 38 today, will there then be another opportunity to hear a case that would allow him to increase that to 299? Because 160 feet is not very far. I wouldn't want to live 160 feet from, even though the music's inside, I can guarantee you, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. The neighbors are all going to hear it.
Bob. Sir, what's the size of the building that you're going to use as the event center?
The size, I believe it's 4,900 square feet.
JR, what's
That
the,
wouldn't hold
do you know what off the top of your head the square footage requirement is for said per person?
Off the top of my aging head, I would say in a situation like this, it's either going to be 15 square or 7 square per person. And I'm not sure which one. I think it'll be based on how they do it. So seating is 15 and open is 7. So if it's just open, it'd be 7.
Well, if I use what 15, I end up at 326. I would, Commissioner Miles' question, there is nothing in the conditions that restricts the number of people who can be there. What is the restricting factor is simply how many parking spaces are available. So yes, if it is approved today, and if he's able to acquire more parking spaces, then the capacity, indoor capacity would be increased. And the only limitation in that case would be either how much parking he has or how much physical space is in the building and it can get approved for in terms of occupancy.
Well, let's move this ahead. Are there any other questions from staff of the applicant?
Not staff.
Excuse me. I mean, not staff, the commission.
JR, tell this gentleman the circumstances. If we pass what he wants us to pass today, he's in violation, what his circumstances are.
So if he were to have an event with 300 people, is that what you're asking, sir?
Well, anything over what we're approving, like 38. So many parking spaces based on 38 is what was in the presentation, correct? So let's say you go down, there's 100 people there. What circumstances does he have? What responsibility does he have in the chances of losing his license or whatever it might be?
Well, he'd probably be charged out of the fire code because the fire investigators would be in. I think I think the maximum jail time is still 6 months for each charge, but the dollar amount, I think on fire department codes or more, I think they're $1,000 to $2,000 per charge.
That's just for this gentleman's information in the event of a default of what we passed today.
Well, again, let's move this ahead. I think we need to go through anybody from the public that might want to speak on this, and we'll come back for more discussion and action from the commission. Okay, if you'd like to come up and speak at this point, you would have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Crystal Coral, 1211 South Ida. So directly behind where he's wanting to build this. Before, about 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had an issue with it, but directly across the street from Ida at 1111 East Lincoln, there's a nightclub. They park all the way from Lincoln, all the way down to Bailey Street, which is to the south. They park across Lincoln to the north. The pawn shop that's right next to my house, they fill that parking lot. When the bar closes, they are still partying in the parking lot, in the street. I have beer bottles, liquor bottles, cups, all in my yard. So those are my concerns. Yeah, I guess. There's gunshots. I've heard gunshots as well. So, those are, again, all my concerns. I have a son that lives at home with me. He's 10. So also the bar across street from my house at 1111 East Lincoln, they park in the alley back there. So again, my alley butts up to this property. There'll be people back there. Doesn't matter the capacity. I don't know what the capacity limits are for the other bar at 1111 East Lincoln, but I can guarantee you they are over capacity every night that they are open. So again, that's just me being a resident. Those are just some of my concerns.
Does anyone on the commission have questions of our speaker? No, we thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present that would like to speak on this case? Is there anyone remotely that would like to speak on this case? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action. Rebuttal. Yeah, sorry. Yes. Mr. Menace, do you want to come back up and speak to the comments of our last speaker?
Yes, so I understand that there are people that party and stay out after, I mean, 2 a.m., whatever time they're allowed. I think that the difference here would be this would go under the recommendation. Let's say weekdays, I believe it was till 10 p.m. and weekends it was up to midnight, people being out. This isn't a nightclub. I know that it's phrased nightclub in the city. It's more for weddings, birthday parties, stuff of that nature.
Any more questions of the applicant? I believe the application states that it is limited to events. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's worded in such so that a traditional nightclub cannot open. So the provision of alcohol and entertainment, so the live music DJ are only allowed when there's an event going on.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
I just like
Mr. McKay.
I'd just like to find out from the applicant. You stated earlier that you wanted us to proceed with the application the way it's written.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion from the commission. Mr. Green.
I'll move to approve the applicant application as presented, knowing that at this point, there would only be 30 people allowed and can come back and well, I thought there were 19 parking spaces and then so that would be 38.
Right.
And I mean, that's the way the application was presented. That's what he would like to have. The parking can take care of itself when the time comes up. If he wants to rezone the MF property, then they'll add maybe 15 more spots, but parking will take care of itself.
I'll second that.
So the occupancy is constrained by the number of parking spaces. We understand that. Have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign.
Aye.
Aye. We'll get the count. Ms. Miles voted no, and Mr. Aldrich. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you for your time. Okay, moving on. The next case is going to be 4.4. And is the applicant or agent here? Yes. Okay. Call on staff to give us a report on this case. 00014.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christina Reed, Associate Planner with the Planning Department. This is case number CUP 2023-00014. I have Jay Henneman LLC, Annie Patel is the applicant, and the agent Bachman Company is here with us today as the agent. The applicant is requesting a minor amendment to CUP Development Plan number 254 Kaiser West Edition. The subject site is 2.88 acres in size, is zoned LC Limited Commercial District, and is generally located on the west side of North Greenwich Road within a 1/2 mile south of East 13th Street North. The applicant seeks to amend the permitted uses on parcels 8-1 and 9-1 to allow restaurants, tavern and drinking establishments, drive-through restaurants, and nightclub in the city as an accessory use. The applicant is intending to construct a shopping center that may provide the permitted uses listed above. Paul, if we could go to this, the drawing that was submitted by the applicant. So there we go. Yeah. So the subject site will feature a 1-story, 10,000 square foot retail space. The building on the northernmost portion of the subject site will feature 12,600 square feet on the first floor and 2,400 square feet on the second floor, which will include an outdoor patio. The site will also have a total of 148 parking spaces. So going back to nightclub in the city, just defining it really quickly, if there is live entertainment and alcohol in the same place that triggers nightclub in the city. Here they're having it as an accessory use. So it has to be accessory to an event center or to a restaurant or to a tavern and drinking establishment. If the subject site was not located within a CUP, uses such as nightclub in the city and tavern and drinking establishment would normally require conditional use when the subject site is within 300 feet of a residentially zoned district. So because this is located within a CUP, the CUP amendment acts in lieu of the conditional use request because the notification and public hearing processes are the same. The shortest distance between the subject site and the residentially zoned properties is approximately 125 feet across Greenwich Road. Paul, if we could go to the aerial just so I could show them where it is in relation to the proposed CUP amendment. Okay, so yeah, there's the aerial. So as you can see, here are the residentially zoned districts, if you can see my mouse here. And then if you just go across North Greenwich Road, you have the subject site here. The proposed application is in conformance with the Community Investments Plan, which includes the 2035 Future Growth Concept Map. The map identifies the area in which the site is located to be appropriate for new employment. It is also in conformance with the locational guidelines of the Community Investments Plan. If you look outside the established central area, low density residential uses should be buffered from commercial and industrial areas by open space, water bodies, changes in topography, or major barriers such as arterial streets or highways. North Greenwich Road is an arterial street and serves as a buffer between the proposed commercial use and the lower intensity duplexes to the east. Based upon the information available at the time the report was prepared, staff recommends that CUP Development Plan 254 be approved, subject to the development guidelines of the amended CUP and the following conditions. 1, we have the operations for the nightclub in the city. It'll be Sunday through Thursday, 3 to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 3 p.m. to 12 a.m., except outdoor entertainment, which ceases at 10 p.m. All other requirements of the CUP shall remain in effect or until a separate zoning action is filed. And the applicant shall submit 4 copies of the CUP and 1 electronic copy of the revised CUP to the planning department within 60 days of approval of this case, or the request shall be considered denied and closed. The recommendation is based on the golden rules, which are listed in your staff report. Since this report was written, you guys did receive 1 public email that was all sent to you guys. She is in opposition of the proposed restaurants, tavern and drinking establishment, and nightclub in the city. Let's go to the site photos, please. This is looking north towards the site. You can already start to see that they're already constructing the area. Next slide, please. This is looking northeast towards the site. And next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. We have another small commercial center here. And next slide, please. Oh, and that's all my photos. With that, I will stand for questions.
Any questions from the commission staff? Okay, if not, we will call on the applicant or agent. Please state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Phil Meyer with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant 315 Ellis. We're in agreement with staff comments. We'll be glad to answer questions if any planning commissioners have any.
Are there any questions of the agent? Okay, well, thank you. Is there anyone present from the public that would like to speak on this? Is there anyone remotely that would like to speak on this case? If not, I will bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Move to approve for staff comments.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same sign. Motion carries.
Can we clarify the second on that one? There was two that spoke at the same time. I heard Hartman. We'll just give it to Hartman. How's that?
Right? Okay, next item will be where are we? Just approved 4.5, right?
And good afternoon, Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff. For the record, CUP 2315 is a request to amend the Mays and 29th Commercial Community Unit Plan, DP 327, which is located on the northeast corner of North Mays Road and West 29th Street North. The applicant is requesting two items that would relate to parcel 5, which is the one outlined in black on the screen in front of you. The first is to modify the landscaping requirements to match those that were recently permitted on parcels 6A and 6B, which are directly north to them. In addition, to modify the architectural controls regarding exterior building materials. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. The subject parcel is 1.45 acres in size. It's on the Mays Road side of the CUP. It's currently undeveloped. The applicant is requesting to change the landscaping requirements to match what is allowed on 6A and 6B, which was recently before the Planning Commission, I believe about this time last year. When this was originally developed, for the several parcels along Mays, as well as several parcels along 29th Street, a 3-foot landscape curvilinear berm, and the landscaping in this case was really just typical grass, was required to be constructed at the time that Sam's Club, which is the anchor store on parcel 1, was built. And so those berms were constructed at that time. And the language of the CUP was going to require those berms to satisfy the landscaping requirement for the parking lot screening since they're up against arterial roads. The long story short with 6A and 6B is that the inevitable approval for landscaping for the front of 6A and 6B was that they could do a 1-foot high berm with landscaping on top of it in the form of shrubs and bushes. The conversation at that time was that the parcels up here on the north end, which currently has IHOP and then the other one's undeveloped, as well as this small portion of parcel 1, which has a Sam's gas station, we're not required to have the curvilinear berm that was 3 foot high. And so the landscaping, in a sense, on Mays Road, they're requesting to be able to match what IHOP and Sam's Gas was allowed to do and not to have the 3 foot high curvilinear berm. So parcel 5, is the only parcel on Mays Road that has the berm still. And so with their request to do the 1 foot high berm with the bushes on top, brings it in line and would allow it to be developed in the way that pretty much all the other parcels on the Maze Road side of the development have been allowed to be developed up until this point. There are still curvilinear berms on 29th Street. None of that landscaping requirement has been changed, and all of those parcels that have been developed have developed that berm. There's only one undeveloped parcel on 29th Street. This berm is still there. The requirement for that berm would still be required to be there. The second point that they're wanting to do is to add EIFS, which stands for, let me find it in here, exterior insulating finishing systems. In a sense, it's faux stucco as an option for a building material. This CUP has very specific architectural controls. When it was first established, when Sam's Club wanted to go in with neighborhood input, there was a significant amount of public input, and it carried over into the architectural controls as well. And so they're looking to add the language that parcel 5 shall be allowed to use a mix of 2 or more of the following architectural block, brick, stone, and EIFS for the predominant building material. One thing to keep in mind is that this is a fairly large parcel in terms of the out parcels. The architectural controls state that if there's a building that is 100 feet long and or 100 feet wide, that they're required to have a mixture of block, brick, and stone that will break up the surface of the building. And so the allowance of EIFS in there basically means they will still have, if they have a building that's 100 feet long or 100 feet wide, that they will still have to have that mixture like you see on the Sam's Club building, or like you'll see in the pictures here where there's a retail strip center on 29th Street that has that mixture of block, brick, stone, and in this case, parcel 5 could use EIFS as one of those elements as well. I think we'll just jump to the land use plan. This area is identified for residential and employment mix. They haven't told us what the use is per se, but it will likely be within the confines of the CUP. They're not looking to do any type of different use on the site, so that's not changing. Overall, staff is recommending approval, subject to the conditions that really say, like, we are in agreement with that proposed language of the CUP. We don't feel that adding EIFS as an exterior building material really have detrimental effects on the development of the CUP or the architectural intent of when it was first established, and allowing the landscaping to be along Maze Road that has already been allowed on other parcels seems to fit that intent as well. I've had several phone calls with folks regarding this, and once explaining to them what they were requiring, what they were asking to do, much like I did in my presentation today. All the comments that I received thus far have not been in opposition. They were just more curiosity of what was going on. As we indicated, there's a gentleman online who'd like to have comments for us later today. With that, I will go through the site pictures. This is looking south. This is Maze Road. This is parcel 5. You can see this is the berm that is currently that had to be constructed when Sam's was constructed. You can see a little bit over here that there's bushes and stuff along where Sam's gas is. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. Again, this is parcel 5. This is Sam's Club. These are out parcels along 29th Street. Next picture. This is looking east at the site. Again, the curvilinear berm is kind of, it just wraps into the hill that raises to the elevation, but then it drops 3 feet on the back side. Next picture. This is parcel, it's either parcel or it's 6B there on the picture. This is Dunkin' Donuts. The state of the existing landscaping has already been addressed. It is in the system that their bushes need to be replaced. But they have a 1 foot berm with vegetation on top that the landscape ordinance does allow them to grow to 3 feet in maturity. They don't have to be 3 feet tall at the time of planting. And that same requirement is allowed on 6A, which is to the north of Duncan, which is currently under construction. And so you'll have the same landscaping treatment along this portion of Maze Road. Next picture. This is looking south again from 6A. This is under construction right now. They will have to put in the same type of berm and landscaping that Duncan did. Next picture. This is looking east at the residential properties on across from Mays Road. Next picture. This is on 29th Street. This is in the foreground is 29th Street. This is looking north at the parcel east of Sam's Gas. This is already established. You can see they still have their berm that was required. It went in. And when it comes to the building treatment, you can see how the brick and the stone and the different type of block break up the face of this building because it's over 100 feet long. The same type of breaking up of this facade is still required. The difference is where you have some of this fascia in the front part of the building, they could use EFIS. And when I Googled EFIS and what it looks like, it could look like this. So kind of personal aside there, but generally that I use this picture kind of as an example of what some of the existing architecture is on some of the out parcels, and using EFIS as a alternate option likely won't have any visual detrimental effects. Next picture. This is a landscaping that was allowed on IHOP. This again is on Mays Road. Next picture. This is on 29th Street as well, farther to the east. Next picture. And this is the only undeveloped parcel along 29th Street. Again, the berm is still intact. This does not change the landscaping requirements for this parcel. This parcel still is required to have the berm. I can stand for any questions.
Do you have any questions from the commission?
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
At this point?
All right, bye.
Not I call on the agent or applicant to speak. Bill, state your name and address again for the record, and you have 10 minutes.
Phil Meyer with Baughman Company, 315 LS agent for the applicant. We're in agreement with staff comments. I'll be glad to answer questions. I think Philip did a good job of explaining. We're just trying to take this parcel 5 and match it in with 6 to the north. And if you're looking at the photographs, we want to match what the IHOP did. So.
Any questions for the agent from the planning commission? No questions. Okay, are there anybody from the public present that would like to speak on this case? Anybody present? Is there anybody remotely that would like from the public that would like to speak on this case?
Yes, I would. My name is James Tidball. I live at 10211 West Lakes Court in the Fox Ridge neighborhood.
Okay,
And I
go
will
ahead,
first of all,
sir. You have 3 minutes.
thank you, sir. I want to thank the commission for allowing me to speak on this subject. I would like the commission to know that we're vehemently opposed to any changes in the CUP. So that would be DP 327, which this CUP 23-00015 chooses to change. The residents of Fox Ridge negotiated in good faith that this agreement would be held up over the course of time. It was agreed in order to preserve the property values of the surrounding area by ensuring that the buildings are an upscale and aesthetically pleasing in nature. And I have no idea what this EF, whatever it is, how long that's going to last or what it's going to look like in 4 or 5 years or 10 years, whatever. And I am absolutely opposed to changing it now. Why did everybody else have to comply with this? And now they don't have to. It doesn't make any sense to me. The CUP was developed for a reason. Those restrictions were put in there for a reason. And now it's being challenged and asked to circumvent those reasons. And that's all I have to say.
Are there any questions of the speaker at this point? Okay, if not, is there anyone else virtually or present who would like to speak on this case? If not, we'll bring it back to the agent. You have 2 minutes rebuttal.
I don't think I'll need full 2 minutes, but again, we're just trying to match what's happened all the way up and down Mays Road at this point. We would be the only property on Mays Road that would be required to have the berm if we construct that. EFS is a standard building material that is every bit as good as the materials and the photographs that Philip showed you. So we're not downgrading any of the architectural character by the changes we're proposing. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Mr. Green.
What, I'm not familiar with EFS. I'm familiar with stucco, but
Same,
it's the exact same thing.
pretty much same.
So the life expectancy is pretty darn good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, especially on a commercial building.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the agent? Mr. McKay? Oh. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion. We approve subject to staff comments.
Second.
I'm not finished.
Hello.
Moved by Mr. McKay, second by
Including the
Mr.
use of
Green.
EFS in the construction.
All right, the.
Mr.
time-
Doyle, it appears we might have another online comment. Mr. Martin, are you looking to comment on this case?
Yes, can you hear me?
I'll retract my motion then.
Take back my second.
Okay.
Oh, hello,
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize about that because I am technologically an infant at times, but I live at 10014 in West Lakes, and I agree with Mr. Tidball. There is a reason why these agreements come into place in the first place. I understand that things get broke eventually. But looking back and saying, well, these other people did this, why can't we do that also? Doesn't degrade the original agreement. Just because a mistake was made in the past, I don't believe that you continue to make mistakes and let them snowball. You try to correct those mistakes and try to get in line with the original good faith agreement that you have, instead of just snowball on mistakes that you have previously made. That's what I have to say. Thanks for hearing me out. And one more thing, I guess I don't really understand why it would be, and this is just my ignorance, why it would be zoned as commercial / residential. That could just be an option. That's what it is, instead of just purely commercial. And the EFEDs, I'm ignorant to that also. But the percentage wise on that size of a building compared to the other buildings that they were showing, I mean, I know that lot. If you're going to have parking, the building's not going to be that large. And aesthetically, I just don't think it matches the area. I just go back to my original point. Why have these agreements and, in my mind, these contracts if we're going to break them? That's all I have. Thank you.
We'll give the agent an opportunity to rebuttal this if you'd like. 2 minutes. Okay, we're good. Bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance in the CUP, or is it a PUD? CUP, and let it be, allow them to use EFS in construction.
And the berm.
That's
Okay, we have
that's
moved by Mr.
But second.
McKay. Mr. Williams Bay, second.
Second.
Mr. Green, okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, we have one negative and what?
No,
That negative came from
Oh,
Mr. Mark.
okay. I thought maybe Joe Johnson was still on.
Well, he
Okay,
is-
motion
he is
passed.
still on.
Okay, moving on to item 4.6. Is the applicant or agent present on this one?
I believe he may be online.
Mr. Rodriguez or Cordova, is somebody online to speak on this case?
There's an individual earlier that gave their address incorrectly for the wrong case, and they said 45th Street. I think that's this individual.
It's our policy, I believe, if the agent or applicant's not here to defer it. Is that correct?
Well, and it depends. Part of that would be if there was any other member of the public that spoke, there'd be no opportunity for them to rebut. What we can do, sir, is if you'd like, we can try and call the applicant and see if we can get them to attend. And that would allow you to move on to another item, and then could
Okay.
come back to this one.
Let's try to do that, and we'll move on to the next case. Is there somebody online that wants to speak on this item, the applicant or agent?
You mean the 416?
Yes.
Yeah, so like I said, I live across the road from
We will
this.
continue on. You're online. We'll hear a report from staff at this point.
Is he the applicant or agent, or is he speaking in opposition?
I think he's a neighbor.
Oh,
It's not the applicant or agent. It's
Sorry
just a
about
neighbor
that.
wanting to provide comment.
We are moving on to 4.7, and we'll try to get a hold of the applicant on 4.6. Right.
So yeah, while we're looking to get a hold of the applicant for 4.6, we're going to move on to zone 2023-22. And we'll come back to the previous one once we get a hold of the applicant. So zone 2322 is a zone change request from SF20 single family residential to LC limited commercial on the southeast corner of North Ridge Road and West 45th Street. The applicant is looking to initially permit one thing, and that is to allow an off-site sign on the property. Paul, can you go to the site photos, please? Again, this is in the county and is governed by the Sedgwick County Sign Code, which has different regulations than the Wichita Sign Code. Go to the next picture, Paul. Next one too, please. So those were pictures of the site. So the foreground is 45th Street. This street going to the south is Ridge Road. Their intention is to have an off-site sign to advertise for a duplex development that is currently being developed less than a quarter mile to the east of this location, with the entrance to the development off of 45th Street. The Sedgwick County Sign Code has standards for off-site signs that are listed in your staff report. One is that it has to be a minimum of 75 feet from a residential structure. Regarding the height and size, I confirmed with other county staff, and the height and size would be regulated by what an on-site sign is allowed to have. And that means it cannot exceed 35 feet. And it has a ratio of 2 square feet in area per 1 linear foot of street frontage. With a sign along North Ridge Road, it could have approximately up to 350 square feet. The Sedgwick County Sign Code restricts a sign area for a single sign to no more than 400 square feet. Properties to the north, northwest, and west are zone single family SF20. If you want to go back to the zone change or zoning map, Paul, that'll be helpful. They're developed with single family dwellings on parcels anywhere from 1 to 4 acres in size. Properties to the east and the south, you can see here, there's 2 little strips of land in limited commercial zoning to Mr. Green's comment. They are part of this larger CUP development.
They just happen to be like flag pole strips of land providing access to 45th and Ridge at this location, about 30 feet wide. Obviously, they're undeveloped. The parcels to the east and south of those are SF20 with single-family residences on them. Paul, can you go to the kind of the exhibit I have that shows this site in relation to the CUP? Kind of looks like a site plan. Thank you. So what I want to make note of is you have the subject site here, which is going to limited commercial. You have these two flag lots. This is from the CUP drawing. You can see on the CUP drawing, they have an area indicated right here for a 5-foot wall easement. When there's a commercial CUP that abuts residential zoning, they're required to have a minimum of a 6-foot masonry wall. When I was reviewing this document, the idea that this wall easement follows really more of the parcel boundaries and does not have any indication here, I feel like there could be a little bit of gray area in terms of whether or not the CUP is going to be providing a wall that would go up this way and go across this way to provide the required screening next to residentially zoned properties like they could. That is the genesis or the instigation of that provision in the protective overlay to require this property owner to provide screening on the east and the south sides if the CUP does not provide that screening, so that the screening requirement between commercial property and residential property is adhered to, whether it's from the CUP property or this property here. Paul, I know I'm having you jump around a lot. Can you go to the site photos again? Looking south from 45th Street at the property to the east. When you're there in person, the whole point of this 30-foot drive does not go to the next picture. See if we can find it here. Keep going. There we go. Oh, that's south of side. So this is a residential property at the south. Go to the next picture, please. Next picture, please. If not, we can go back to the aerial. Let's just go back to the aerial. I apologize. When you're there in person, there's really nothing delineating this 30-foot piece of land from the subject site. When you're there, it's just all open. There's no barrier. There's no indication that there's a property change, that there's actually a difference in a 30-foot property that's owned separately from this property or this property. And so you just have this open space between what will be commercially zoned and able to be built with commercial uses and residential property here. And again, based on the CUP drawing, to me, it was a little fuzzy on whether or not the CUP would be providing a wall along this property line when their wall easement followed this property line here. So that was the instigation of that requirement for this property to provide screening if the CUP does not. Overall, the request for commercial zoning in terms of a future land use was not identified. Particularly, it was mostly mentioned that they are looking for that offsite sign to advertise for the development to the east. I have not had public comment on this, and I can stand for questions.
Does anyone on the commission have a question for staff?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So this, the parcel on the corner, is it the same ownership as the large commercial?
No.
Oh, it's not. So it's, is it part of the or the whatever duplexes or whatever?
No, it is separately owned.
I have a question. Why was this property platted with these 30-foot strips of land? Were those anticipated driveways or streets in there, or?
So the property is unplatted. This one's unplatted. I'm not sure about the property down here or where these little flag lots came to allow the access. I'm not sure the history on where they came from. The fact of the matter is they're there and they're kind of posing a conundrum.
Okay. So you've referenced a couple times not knowing if the CUP requires that those two strips of land to have wall requirements? I guess you haven't been able to find a CUP on that?
Well,
or-
no, the CUP, per the regs in the zoning code, the CUP regs in the zoning code require a minimum of a 6-foot masonry wall along property lines next to residential zoning. What I was getting at when reviewing the CUP is they took the time to identify a wall easement that did not include these two strips of land, which to me could lead somebody to believe that the wall would be in the easement, even a future developer, and not along this property line. There was nothing in this CUP that said that this area here and this area here are exempt from the wall requirement. I'm just trying to make sure that screening is required or screening is put into place regardless of who does it, whether it's the CUP property or this, and knowing it's not under the same ownership, you could have again, that gray area where, if this gets approved without a screening requirement, will there ever be screening installed? Whatever happens if the CUP just puts the wall around the bulk of the parcel and leaves these two strips open?
I guess
What we're looking to address.
I guess what kind of bothers me the most is the fact that this applicant, I don't see how he could be required to install screening when his proposed or his requested zoning is limited commercial, that is abutting limited commercial.
Per the code, it is not required. With the protective overlay, the board can require it. Obviously, if the board does not necessarily agree with staff's recommendation, that item can be stricken from the protective overlay. It was just staff's recommendation based on this unique circumstance of this location.
Mr. Harvin?
Well, it looks to me like these strips here might be access points, but there's really nothing to screen. There's no building that's gonna go in there. It's just a driveway. So why would you need a wall along a driveway?
That was kind of my assessment when you're looking at, well, when you get to the letter of the law or the letter of the code for the CUP requirement, technically they would be required to put a wall here. The code doesn't differentiate of no wall along a driveway. It says we're
Yeah, I
I
think
see a commercial CUP abuts the property. So again, that to me, your point is exactly what I thought of, like, well, if the developer of the CUP thinks, well, this is a driveway, I don't have to screen a driveway. Well, then this property develops commercially, then there's no screening between commercial development and residential zoning, and the intent of the zoning code is not being upheld.
Yeah, I think somebody just missed it.
It'd be perhaps the applicant or agent can shed more light on this. Does anybody have any further questions of staff on this? Not, we'll call on the applicant or agent. You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Bill Meyer with Bachman Company, agent for the applicant. 315 Ellis is the address. Well, this will be an interesting conversation to listen to Planning Commission talk through. So to answer some of the questions that I've heard here, or first of all, the applicant is James Long, the landowner. Jay Russell's trying to build a marketing sign on his property and has rented a space from him. One clarification from what Philip told you, when you pull up to this intersection, this sign's going to point you east to go to Castaways, which is a residential subdivision, half mile to the east. Not that the duplexes rent so quick, they don't need to market those. Then he's gonna have a sign pointing to the west to go over to Henwick. So he's got two subdivisions east and west of this, and he's looking to market that. Can't do that unless the property is zoned LC. So that old CUP, the existing LC zoning is owned by Ramona Hayes. And when her and Don bought all that ground years ago, they own those strips. It came with what they bought. And so they are access strips. They didn't go buy those 30-foot access strips to do the commercial zoning. They've owned them since they bought the ground. It's the strangest thing. I mean, we zone this thing, back in early 2000s. And we did it, the whole CUP was both this duplex subdivision to the east and this ground. It was a large piece. Richie and Russell owned the west. They owned, or the east. The Hayeses owned the west. We always felt like all those parcels up and down Ridge Road would go commercial. I know they banged on doors and asked homeowners if they wanted to join that CUP at the time, and they didn't. But from the development standpoint, when the previous planning commission and planning staff always felt like all this ground along here would end up being commercial someday. And I still believe that to be true. I'm gonna let planning commission decide on the screening fence. I understand staff's point, it's a 30-foot wide strip. If we go put a McDonald's on that corner, there's not a buffer if it's not there. I think someday it's all going to be commercial there. I wasn't going to stand up and oppose that today because I don't know how long it's going to be before this thing develops out. Some of the rest of this ground is going to be commercial. But the cedar fence didn't bother me as a screening requirement short term until the rest developed. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you guys may have.
Any questions from the commission for the agent?
So you're in agreement with staff comments?
I was going to be in agreement with staff comments and, do I want to build the fence? No. Was I going to stand up here and argue about building the fence? No, I wasn't.
Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Huh?
I'm a online comment.
Well, we'll get to you in just a second.
Well, according to the zoning map, it's very obvious that this ground is also zoned light commercial. And light commercial building, light commercial, like Mr. Green was saying, is not necessary to be done. And this is not done after the fact, it's been done before the fact. And there's a lot of areas in Sedgwick County where they got access roads, ingress and egress, that go a half a mile back in. It's zoned the same as the piece of property. It's the big piece in the back. So this is not uncommon in the suburban areas of Sedgwick County. So.
Any other comments or questions of the agent? Okay, if not, we'll call on comments from anybody present. Is there anybody present and from the public who'd like to talk on this? Okay, how about remotely, sir? Would you like to talk about, you have 3 seconds, give us your name and address, please.
Michael Limbert, 4430 North Ridge Road.
Sorry about that.
Trying to speak. Yeah, I live right across from that duplex, whatever housing development. There are a lot of houses have been put up already. And I also live right next to that big field that Hayes owns that is light commercial. I don't know what's going to be done with that piece of land, but I know I see all the houses being built on the other side, and I want to know if, since we live straight across from there and we're totally residential, our neighbor is residential, neighbor up the road is residential, neighbor down the road is residential. And we'll continue to be residential. So I don't know what the other guy was saying about how everything is going to be commercial one of these days, because we'll always be residential. So since we're residential and there are houses over here, there should be some kind of retaining wall separating those houses from us. Since Hayes's field is empty, I don't know how long his field will be like that. But people can run across from that area over to our area very easily, since there's no fence or anything like that. And who knows what kind of mischief they could cause. So, I believe there should be a wall going all the way down. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions of the speaker? Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this? If not, we'll bring it back to the agent. Do you have 2 minutes for rebuttal on this? Or 2 seconds?
I don't have a very quick, long rebuttal on this. I mean, we're at an arterial of Ridge and 45th. And if you look around, if you look at 21st and Mays 30 years ago, it looked like this corner does now. So with time, I think this will be commercial, and there's nothing wrong with approving this today. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of the agent?
Can I ask him a question?
No, your time's up, sir.
My time's up, okay.
Okay, if we have no questions, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
I move that we approve the request and not require a screening fence to be a part of that.
Second.
Mr. Green moved and Ms. Miles seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion carries. Okay, we'll go back to 4.7. We're able to get a hold of the applicant or agent on that? Six, I mean, yeah. Yeah, 4.6.
Staff are indicating that, yes, we were able to get in touch with them.
Okay, we'll go back to 4.6.
If we could, can we check and see if they're joining remotely or?
I believe he joined us remotely. We may want to check. Victor, are you able to hear us? Paul had indicated that he joined, but I would like to confirm he can hear.
I'd like to make a motion. We defer until he can be in present.
Victor, are you able to unmute?
Looks like he's on.
Doesn't appear that we're having any luck.
Mr. De Leon, are you on? Are you muted on your computer or are you with us?
Hey. Michael again?
Hello, Mr. De Leon. Mr. De Leon, are you there?
Sir, doesn't look like we're having any luck.
Oh, Rodriguez, I'm sorry, yeah.
No, that is correct. Yes, that's the owner and the applicant.
Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Cordoba, can you hear us? So I think we have the option, you have the option of either holding off and listening to the other item or deferring this one.
Well, we've given them time to get back on. I think we ought to defer this and make sure that the applicant is here for when we reschedule it.
That was my motion.
Second.
Second, we have a motion, Mr. Johnson, second for Mrs. Miles. Yes.
Staff clarification question. Typically, because of public hearings, we do this to a date certain. So it'd be good if we could get a date.
Next
June
meeting.
June 8th. Okay, that's part of the motion.
Mr. Chair, we
Yes.
have another item, agenda item. Can we hear that agenda item first and then come back to 4.6? Just in case, or because it looks like they're trying to get on. But for some reason, they're having a technical difficulty. I think we ought to give them at least that opportunity before we
You
defer.
want to make a substitute motion on that?
Yes, sir, I would. I would like to.
Just a minute, let Counselor speak on this.
Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. Yes, I think it would be appropriate. If you did want to move this to the end, it probably would be best to do it by motion. And I'll,
Let me just withdraw my motion.
I'll refrain on further comment until I see how this one turns out before addressing the original.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that we put 4.6 on the last of the agenda and here 4.8 next.
Did I hear Joe withdraw his motion?
Yes.
Okay, he withdrew his motion, so we will just sit on this for the next case and see if we can get them online.
I'm sorry, just as a point of technicality, I think it still would be best if we are moving items out of order to make it by motion. So
Okay.
take up an item out of order.
I'll second Mr. Aldridge's
Motion for Mr. Aldridge, second for Mr. McKay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those the same sign. We'll defer it to the end. Okay. So now we have 4.8.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christina Reith from the Planning Department. I have case number zone 2023-00023. I have the agent Kirk Miller here on behalf of Build Wichita Inc., who is the owner. The applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5 Single Family Residential District to TF3 Two Family Residential District on Lot 16 of the Gilder Gardens addition. The 4.85 acre property is located at 200 North Jackson Heights Street, and the subject site is currently developed with a single family residence. According to the plat that was submitted to me, the applicant is proposing 19 duplexes on site, each on their own individual lot. It'll be just essentially one cul-de-sac there. Should the zone change request be approved, there will be no change in setbacks, parking requirements, or maximum height. If we look at the zoning map, Paul, the character of the neighborhood is residential. Northwest of the subject site on North Jackson Heights Street is another duplex development. If you look below, there's some parcels that are zoned for TF3 for duplexes as well. The requested zone change is in conformance with the community investments plan. The 2035 future growth concept map recommends the site as primarily appropriate for new residential uses. Based upon the information available prior to the public hearings, planning staff recommends that the request should be approved, subject to the golden rules, which are listed in your staff report. I will just bring up the last one, opposition or support of neighborhood residents. At the time the staff report was prepared, staff has not received any comments from the public on the requested zone change. And let's go through the site photos really quickly. This is looking west towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site. If you look back far enough, you can already see one of the duplexes there. Next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. Next slide, please. And this is looking west away from the site. And with that, I will stand for questions.
We have any questions of staff from the commission? If not, we'll call the agent or applicant. You have 10 minutes. State your name and address.
Kirk Miller, K. Miller Engineering. I'm the agent. We're 117 East Louis. We're fine with staff comments.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the agent? There's no questions. Thank you. Is there anybody from the public present that would like to speak on this? I don't see anybody present. Is there anyone on virtually that would like to speak on this case?
Yes, I would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, sir. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, Nathan Hobrechter, 12301 East Tipperary. I fundamentally have no problem with the change to the plat. My concern is with the additional traffic on Jackson Heights Street. It is a There's no curb, there's no gutter. It is a very narrow street. It is in poor condition. And when traffic is on that street, it's very hard to navigate, especially on a school bus. It's almost a safety concern, and I don't know how that has been addressed with the planning commission or where to go with that. It's probably a fine development, but the street, I don't know how that's going to handle it. I don't think if infrastructure is capable of. I question if the infrastructure is capable of handling additional traffic. To navigate Jackson Heights Street, a lot of people traverse private property to get onto Jackson Heights Street. So with that, I'll cease my comments.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone on the commission have a question of this speaker? If not, is there anybody else virtually that would like to speak on this item? I'll bring it back to the agent for rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
With all these properties along here that have developed into multiple lot subdivisions, they've all had to put up petitions to pave Jackson Heights Street. And I'm sure that'll be a requirement of this one also. I've been contacted by others trying to get the city to initiate these petitions and get this road paved. This will just be another one of trying to do the same thing. And this developer says, I want to get this paved. And he also has the development catty corner, that's the duplexes. The 1-2 down from that wants the road paved, the one across from that wants the road paved. It's just a matter of getting the engineering department to go ahead and get this petition moving and get it paved. This will probably continue to develop the way it's developing, and pretty soon it'll all be there, but the pavement will still be in poor condition like it is now.
Any questions of the speaker at this point? Yes, Mr. McKay.
Sir, going to the paving, Jackson Heights goes north and then it jogs to the west and then jogs back to the north to Douglas. I know there's a street that goes where it makes the first jog to the west. That's a private street, I mean, a private drive. That's not a street. The only problem that I'm seeing is that there's a creek or a floodway along the east side of Jackson Heights from Douglas down to where it makes the first L or makes it first S. And I don't think there's enough right of way to do that street.
With these plats, right of ways being dedicated. So we have sufficient right of way through a lot of it. I mean, to continue it on, the city may have to come in and take care of getting right of way to go all the way down to Douglas. But these plats have been dedicating right of way. We have a 70-foot right of way through a lot of it now.
Okay.
John, were you talking about central? North to central?
I'm in central, I'm sorry. Douglas is at the south end.
Are there any other questions of the agent at this point from staff? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any further discussion on this?
Move we approve per staff comment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those, yes, Mr. McKay.
One clarification from the staff. I know they've been dedicating on this property, but I know it's not in the CIP either to pave this street or anything else. Is it? Is there?
Yeah, I'm not aware of whether or not it is in the CIP. And
I would imagine Jackson Heights, that would be a petition project, wouldn't it? Would the CIP be involved with that? Is it not?
yeah,
It's not an arterial. Is it a collector? Probably a collector street.
It's the only street that goes for about a mile that goes from Douglas to Central.
the other thing that I would point out too is this property, I believe it's unplatted, correct? Okay, so it's unplatted. So during the platting process, there'll be a discussion also with traffic engineering. Yeah, I think the comment was about if you can get the dedications, but if you don't have enough area to develop it, then you've still got your hands tied in terms of what can be done.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose the same sign.
Aye.
Okay, we have one nay. Joe?
Right.
Okay, back to 4.6. Have we got Mr. Rodriguez or Cordova on the phone?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I'm in the phone right now. Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and hear the case.
If we could, sir, just wanted to make sure, did his microphone cut out? Mr. Rodriguez, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, my name is Victor Leon Rodriguez. Yes, and I'm 4435 North Bridge. Yes.
He's breaking up pretty poorly.
Yeah, yes, sir. Your connection doesn't sound very, very good. Are you speaking into the microphone? Are you nearby with the microphone?
No, well, let me get my phone a little closer to you.
I think that's better.
Oh, here a little better. Okay.
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you, sir. We will go ahead with the staff report on this now. We'll give you a chance to talk in a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. Zone 2023-00020 is a requested zone change from SF20 Single Family Residential District to GC General Commercial District for Vehicle Storage Yard. The subject site is 5.29 acres in size and is located west of North Ridge Road and south of West 45th Street North. The property is located in unincorporated Sedgwick County. The site is currently developed with a single-family residence, and the applicants and owners have been storing commercial vehicles in their rear and side yard. Approval of this request would bring that storage into compliance, as vehicle storage yard permits the keeping of one or more operable motor vehicles for more than 72 consecutive hours. I do want to note that this would not permit the storage of inoperable vehicles or wrecking and salvage on the site. So all vehicles would need to be operable. Properties in this area are a mix of commercial, industrial, and residential zoning and uses. And properties directly abutting the site on all sides are zoned SF20 Single Family Residential District and are developed with single family residences. And due to the proximity to those nearby residences, staff is recommending that the application be approved subject to protective overlay 412, which would limit uses on the site to those permitted in SF20 Single Family Residential District, as well as vehicle storage yard as permitted in the GC General Commercial District. So essentially allowing what is currently permitted on the site under the current zoning with only the addition of the vehicle storage yard as requested by the applicant. The applicant will be required to provide screening on the north, south, and west sides where they abut residential property should the request be approved. And additionally, in the protective overlay, there is a provision stating that the applicant will be required to pave the vehicle storage area with an all-weather surface. The subject property is designated by the Community Investments Plan Future Growth Map as appropriate for residential and employment mix. And with that map and the locational guidelines is found to be in conformance with the plan. And then again, staff is recommending that the application be approved subject to the protective overlay. I mentioned that the storage area would need to be paved. Additionally, there is a provision that states that vehicles Storage shall be screened to be reasonably hid from the ground level view, adjacent property and street right of way. And the applicant will be required to provide a site plan indicating the location of the vehicle storage, and that shall be behind the principal dwelling unit to again minimize the visual impact of those stored vehicles. At the time of the publication of the staff report, we had received a few comments from neighbors with concerns about this request. Those have been provided to you all in advance of the meeting via email. Generally, the concerns were related to the full scope of GC uses being provided or permitted on the site, I should say. When I spoke with the individuals that provided public comment with the photos and explained the protective overlay, they were generally okay with that, with this request, as long as the protective overlay was included. With that, I will go to the site photos.
Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I got a couple of quick questions. Is there a limit on types of vehicles? Like, can it be just trucks or cars?
So my understanding is it would be limited to vehicles used for their business. So I think you can kind of see here what they have here. I don't think that other vehicles like boats or tractors, things of that nature are permitted. My understanding is it would need to be similar types of commercial vehicles to those seen on this photo.
What about the sale of vehicles? Would that be allowed, or is that strictly for storage?
No, sir. Storage only on the site.
Well, if you look at that picture right there in that truck, it's got a for sale sign on it.
Yeah, so as requested, the sale of vehicles from the site would not be permitted. It would be storage only. So that would not be a permitted use.
So no other type of vehicles besides trucks would be allowed on the property for storage. So no cars, no SUVs. Is that correct?
So I believe cars and SUVs would be okay as long as they meet the definition of a vehicle or motor vehicle per the zoning code.
Kirk Sponsel, Assistant County Counselor. Since I have the definitions in front of me, if I may, just read off the definition of a vehicle storage yard, which means the keeping outside of an enclosed building for more than 72 consecutive hours of one or more motor vehicles, except inoperable vehicles, boats, trailers, or unoccupied recreational vehicles. The term vehicle storage yard does not include wrecking or salvage yard. So the way that this is currently defined, it is broad and includes all types of motor vehicles, boats, trailers, or unoccupied recreational vehicles. So if you want to limit the specific type of vehicle that's being stored there, it would have to be done through an additional condition.
Okay, but you also, staff made a comment that the vehicles that are stored on there has to be west, or in this case, behind the existing home that's there, correct?
Yes, sir. So should this be approved going forward, the vehicles would need to be behind the principal structure.
Because one of my concerns is a few months ago, the commission approved a vehicle storage just north of this, of where this is at 5206 Ridge. And it's a mess right now. I don't know if you've been there here lately, but they do have damaged cars, wrecked cars, inoperative vehicles. They're burned with railroad ties and other debris that's stuck in there. I just don't think that was what the intent was to be. I know that's a whole different thing, but my concerns is this is gonna wind up being that same thing.
I do want to state that the individuals that are storing these vehicles, they're doing it as convenience for their business. So I will let the applicant speak to their long-term plans, but my understanding is that they're not planning to be storing a large number of vehicles as a separate kind of commercial venture. As I understand, they were storing these vehicles here due to convenience for their construction business. But again, I would defer to the applicant to confirm that they don't have any plans to expand that in the future.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what we're looking at rezoning is 5.29 acres and they have to have, it has to be paved with all weather material. How much of it has to be paved? Because,
So the parking area where the vehicles are located.
well, I know, but if, if there's 5.29 acres that we're rezoning that they could potentially be parking vehicles on, how much of that has to be paved? Because they realistically, as
So a condition,
2,000 square feet is all they can.
yes, a provision of the protective overlay limits the area for vehicle storage to 10,000 square feet. So they would not be required to pave beyond that.
Aaron, you stated a couple of things. One, that there would be screening on the north, west, and south property lines.
Yes, sir.
Contiguous all the way around, or continuous. But then provision number 3 says that vehicles shall be screened reasonably to hide them from ground level. Is that in addition to the screening that's around the entire property?
Correct. So they would be required to have the screening on the 3 sides where abutting residential uses, and then the vehicles would need to be behind the principal residence where it fronts Ridge Road. But then additionally, the applicant, because this property is now becoming commercial and Ridge Road is an arterial street, would need to comply with the Wichita landscape ordinance and provide a landscape street yard along Ridge Road.
Just a correction on that. This is in the county and the landscape ordinance doesn't apply.
Right, but
Scratch that.
But her
Number-
comment about the screening, so we have like the other case just up the street, you have commercial zoning next to residential, which requires screening.
Oh, I understand that. I was just looking at number 3. It said vehicles shall be screened to reasonably high from ground level to adjacent property and street right of way. So is that 2 forms of screening that we're requiring in the vehicle where the
No.
vehicles are parked?
Right, so like if the vehicle is behind the house, we would not want it to be viewed from Ridge Road. So the portion of the property between the house and the property line would need some level of screening, but does that make sense?
And the adjacent property
Correct.
would be covered by the screening that goes around the entire property.
Right, if they
That's-
had screening around the whole property, that's the screening that needs to be provided.
So you're saying that this whole 5.9 acres has got to be screened except for that little portion across the front there on Ridge Road?
Because they're going to commercial zoning. A screening fence is required.
since this is out in the county and if they violate, so they end up doing as Mr. Aldrich said, storing a lot of other things on there, what's the repercussions of that?
My understanding is it is on a complaint basis, but I would refer to JR or Kelly to respond to that question.
I'll let Kelly keep me honest, but it'd be the same as in the city, It'd be a violation of the code, and be a misdemeanor offense. So upon conviction, they would be fined 6 months and or $500 on each charge.
And
that
that's
right?
if we can get somebody to come out on a code violation.
That's correct, and there would be.
If it, Kirk Spons, Assistant County Counselor, I believe with the county, because these violations would potentially be brought forward in county court, we actually don't have jail time associated with county court violations, so it would just be fines.
Then I just defer to my learned counsel and stand corrected.
Are there any other questions of staff at this point? If not, I will call on the agent or applicant. Please state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes. Mr. Rodriguez.
Miss Victor De Leon Rodriguez, and my address is 4435 North Ridge Road, Wichita, Kansas 67201. And we understand all the rules. We need to get it done, and we only gonna use for our vehicles. You know, the ones we use for construction every day. We don't gonna storage any other vehicles.
Mr. Rodriguez, do you understand the screening requirements that we've been discussing?
Yes, yeah, I understand, and I understand whatever we need to do to get it done, we get it done. Just we get the rules we need to do to get it. Whatever we need to get it done, we need to get it done. Yes.
Are there any questions of the applicant from the commission?
No, I
If
don't have
not,
any questions. No questions at all.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public present or online that would like to talk on this issue, on this case?
I would like to talk. This is Michael again. Can you hear me? Okay.
Name and address, sir, and you
4430 North Ridge
have
Road.
3 minutes.
4430 North Ridge Road. Right across from this house. 4435 is right across from me. How come no pictures were taken of the back of the house? I'm only seeing a picture right there, no picture taken on the left-hand side, which shows the big trucks that can be in a scene, directly from my eyesight. And on the back, I've seen like piles of sand and gravel, like it's a sand pit. So that doesn't sound like a storage place to me. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any other comments from the public at this point? I will bring it back to the applicant, and you have 2 minutes for rebuttal on this. Can you answer his question? Mr. Rodriguez, can you answer his question?
Yeah, the sand, we have a little sand for leveling, and the gravel we usually use, when get a little hole, we just patch it out with gravel. That's it. That's what we use the gravel for. And get a little.
What about the trucks?
Okay. Are there any other comments from the public on this? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission, and maybe could staff please respond to that last question?
Yes, sir. There are additional photos in the PowerPoint that show various angles of the property, as well as in the staff reports. I started to go through them, and then we started answering questions. So I did not go through all of the site photos that were taken. I'm glad to do that if, yes, okay. Could we go to is this the first site photo? Start from the beginning and I'll go through all of them. So you can see here that, again, this is the subject site with the vehicles stored. Next photo, please. Another angle there. Next photo, please. So this is the tree row that exists north of the site where it abuts a residential property to its north. Next photo, please. This is property north of the site. Next photo, please. This is the residence north of the site. There's that undeveloped portion of land in between the subject site and this residence. Next photo, please. This is the existing fence on the south side of the property. And then a portion of that residence. Next photo, please.
I want to see that.
You can see this is across the street. There is commercially zoned property with the CUP. Next photo, please. This is the full portion of that residence south of the site. Next photo, please. Additional residences farther south of the site. Next photo, please. And then another commercial property which abuts the K96 right of way. I believe it is a bus tour station there. I think that might be all my photos. Paul, do I have any others? And then in regard to taking pictures at the rear of the site, you can see that it's not accessible from the roadway. I could have reached out to the applicant to ask to walk back there. I did not, but So the photos that we have are the ones that are accessible from the street.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, Mr. McKay.
I think what the gentleman's talking about is some people by the name of Nichols sent some pictures, email first part of the week. It shows the back of the property. I think that's what he's referring to. I thought it came from you guys. According to this, it comes from James Nichols.
So Mr. Nichols and his wife Janice sent those photos to me, and then we forwarded them to you.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what he's referring to. So we should have basically all got them. So that's all I'm trying to say.
And those were received after the time of the publication of the staff report, which is why they were not included. I just received those the other day. The date is on the email.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Yes.
Move to approve first staff report and subject to protective overlay 412.
Second.
We've had a motion and a second to approve it per staff comments. Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
I just have a comment. I mean, if you go up and down Ridge from 96 all the way up to 53rd Street, there's other properties that you can see, and staff even had one of the properties on there that's got vehicles that I don't even know if they're operating, they're just sitting out there. There's no screening. And I just, at least this here is going to be screened. So that's the comment that I had.
Any further discussion? We've had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. I believe that's all the business we have to conduct today. We are adjourned. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw. I can guess. Yeah, I'm just saying.